Welcome to the All Clemson Tigers football show, day 3. It's finally coming to an end here in Charlotte at the Westin Hotel. We're wrapping up things with ACC Kickoff. We want to spend a few minutes with you talking about what we heard on Clemson Tigers Day here on All Clemson Tigers Show football edition as we, gentlemen, say goodbye.
Yeah,
2023 ACC kickoff. It's been a week.
Yeah.
It's been 3 days, but it feels like a week.
It does feel like a week.
But it was Clemson's day, and so we want to share our thoughts on that. Will, I'll start with you. Dabo Swinney, got a chance to hear a good bit from him this morning. What was the big standout from Coach Swinney?
The couple things stood out. First, he was asked about, is it good for the ACC if Florida State, is Florida State again? And he says, well, the funny thing was, he's like, well, it ain't good for Clemson. I'll tell you that much. But he says, probably for the conference, yes, overall it's good for the conference. But that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was later on he was asked, well, what do you think about, basically Florida State this year and their chance to rival Clemson in the conference and play for that championship? And he said that he thought that September 23rd game in Death Valley will be the game that decides who goes to the college football playoff. He just jumped straight to the college football playoff, which totally surprised me. And then he came back and said, probably going to decide who wins the ACC too. So he's like, we could see both of us in that game. So it kind of surprised me that he when we heard Mike Norvell yesterday do everything not to say that and to stay away from it, Dabo Swinney went straight to it and just, I guess, said what he thought was on his mind. Kind of surprised me that he opened up a little bit like that.
That is interesting. Anything newsy from Coach Swinney? Anything that stood out in terms of, you talk about dismissal of TJ Dudley or anything like that?
Yeah, he was asked about that, and he just mentioned it was a tough decision because they thought he was going to be a guy that was really going to help them this year. They really liked the way he came on at the end of last season, and he had a good spring. So Dabo says it was a big blow for them, one they weren't expecting. But he said, he broke team rules, and rules are rules, and that it is what it is, and said he wishes TJ the best.
Yeah, certainly accountability is a word that I spoke with Dabo Swinney about earlier this morning. He talked about he keeps a system. He's got numbers in place that track accountability. You get points subtracted or added depending on where you stand with the program. He said out of 135 guys, only 3 had negative points. He said it's one of the best years he's had in 6 or 7 years in terms of his accountability metrics. So accountability is a big deal, and a lot of talk about that with what's happened at Northwestern and all the hazing. And I talked to Will Putnam, the center, about it, and his flat out said there's no tolerance policy at Clemson for that.
Wow.
So really interesting stuff from those guys. Jason, Cade Klubnik, quarterback, was brought. Now I call it the Dabo Swinney rule because it used to be you brought 2 guys, and Dabo would always bring 2 seniors, 1 offense, 1 defense. And the ACC kept saying, bring your quarterback, bring your quarterback. Well, Clemson's had quarterbacks that didn't stick around for their senior season because they're good. And so finally, they changed the rule to allow a third player. The ACC gets to pick who that third player is. It was Cade Klubnik. What did you hear from the starting quarterback of the Tigers?
2 things. One, he's added a little bit of bulk. He says he's up to about 204, 205 now. I remember back in the spring he said he'd like to be about 207, I think it was. So you could tell he's been putting in a lot of work there. But the biggest thing for me was the way he talked up that wide receiver room. We have talked about it. It's a question mark. It could be a weakness going into this season. He sounds like he has a lot of confidence in those guys, man. He said people are not ready for Adam Randall, and that was something that stuck out to me. Sounds like he is fully healthy, ready to go, and ready to put on a show in 2023.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Adam Randall. That's a guy that I asked all the players. I said, give me an under-the-radar guy, and that was Klubnik. Now, he said, I'm a little biased because he's my roommate. They're good buddies. But he said you wouldn't even notice, you wouldn't even think about the fact that he's had 2 knee injuries over the course of a year and a half, basically, or less than a year and a half.
Yeah.
And with how he's performing during the summer workout. So they're really confident Adam Randall. I'll tell you another guy that got brought up that I thought was interesting, Khalil Barnes, the freshman safety. I asked Tyler Davis, he said, man, there's a lot of freshmen on this team, a lot of defensive guys that look really good right now, but Khalil Barnes has surprised a lot of people. 6'1" safety out of North Oconee, 3-star prospect, was a weight commit, not a guy that maybe got as much of the buzz as a Peter Woods or Stephon Green or some of those guys. But man, they really like what they see out of Khalil Barnes. So just kind of store that away in the old memory bank, Jason. We might need to go back to that soon.
Oh yeah, he was a guy that got talked about a lot during the spring. Played well in the spring game. I think Barnes is a guy that can see the field a lot this season. Very underrated. Coming out of high school, he's got a very high upside. I think he's going to be a big player on the back end of that defense.
Absolutely. Over at allclemsontigers.com, I've got a story up very shortly that'll be accompanied with this video here today about some of the guys that I heard who were under the radar. Last one I'll throw real quick. Phil Muffa, not a guy you think under the radar necessarily, but Will Putnam says big things coming for Phil. So go check out that story at allclemsontigers.com. As we wrap things up, guys, there's still some teams going on today, but is there anything you heard from North Carolina or NC State or anybody else that stands out well?
Yeah, I think with North Carolina, they're sort of that forgotten guy, if you will, because I think they're probably the next most talented team in this league besides Clemson and Florida State. And you kind of get a little feel from them that they're like feeling a little disrespected, like they're not being taken serious enough, and they feel like they could pick a push for that ACC championship game as well. I know Drake May was talking about how he learned a lot from the game against Clemson last year, and at the end of the year when they were 9-1, remember when they started the season and they lose the last 4 games. He said we learned a lot from that experience. It taught us a lot about how to handle adversity and what we need to do to get better. And so I think North Carolina is a team that a lot of people just really aren't talking about on the national scene that could really maybe ruin this Clemson-Florida State love fest.
We'll see. We shall see. All right, that's going to put a wrap on things here at ACC Kickoff from the All Clemson Tigers football show. Make sure you go to allclemsontigers.com, part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platforms. I want to thank Jason Priester, Will Vandervoort. I'm Brad Singoff, and a big thanks to Kayla Abercrombie for helping us out with a lot of good stuff on the site as well as helping us with the videos. Have a great week. Fall camp, gentlemen, right around the corner next week. Stay tuned, All Clemson Tigers. Make sure you are subscribed. Hit the like button. You want to stay up to date, we got you covered. allclemsontigers.com. Have a good one.